YouTube? It's good to see you guys. Today we're going to be in the kitchen, and what we're cooking up is an AR-15. We're going to go ahead and bolt on the barrel to the upper receiver, and if we have time we'll go further. So without further ado, here we go. Alright guys, I'm going to go over the materials we're going to need to put together our upper receiver. Of course, you're going to need an upper receiver. You're going to need an armorer's tool in order to tighten on your barrel. And in order to tighten on your barrel, you're going to need a barrel nut. Once you're done with that, you're going to need to put on a gas block with a gas tube. And our gas block comes on with set screws. So we are going to need a 3/32 Allen wrench. And we're going to need a hammer in order to pin on our gas tube to our gas block. You're also going to need a vise so you can torque the barrel on. I would recommend a better vise than this, but this is what I've got. This suction cups onto a surface. I suggest you get a good table with a good vise bolted on there, but I'm not so fortunate to have a place to do that, so I'm going to have to make do. In order to use your vise and not mangle up your upper, you're going to need a jig. You're going to need an outer jig and an inner jig. And then if we have time, we're going to go ahead and put on the flash hider. In order to drive the pin, we're going to need some pin drivers. And this is to help me measure and make sure I've got things set, got the barrel nut set up right so I can run a gas tube through it. I may or may not need this tool. We're going to need to put some NTCs on our barrel nut. We're going to need to use some blue thread locker on our gas block. You're also going to need a torque wrench to make sure you get the right torque on the barrel nut. We're going to use a 1/2" drive on our 1/2" drive hole so we can use a torque wrench and put the proper torque on the barrel nut. You want to set your torque to 30 foot-pounds. The minimum it takes to hold your barrel on is 28 foot-pounds. You're not going to find that reading on most torque wrenches, so just go ahead and go to 30. You'll be fine. Most torque wrenches have an error of about, give or take, 4% at any rate, so we'll be good no matter what. And so basically you set it to 30, torque it down to 30 foot-pounds. If you don't have space for your gas tube to go through, you need to torque it tighter, just enough to get to the next hole on your barrel nut. Torque it tight enough just to make it to the next hole and you'll be fine. The torque spec on this barrel nut is quote-unquote between 28 and 80 foot-pounds. You don't want to go anywhere near 80 because if you put too much torque, it gives you windage problems. So, you know, set it to 30 and work around there. You know, once you torque it down to 30 foot-pounds, if you need to tighten it a little bit more to go to the next hole, you'll be just fine. You won't be anywhere near 80 and everything should be good. So with everything ready to go, we shall begin. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and put the upper receiver into the vise so I can begin. You're going to want to open your dust cover. Put your inner jig into your upper receiver. There's going to be a notch so that you can close your dust cover. Notice there's going to be space there. That's fine. You need that for your barrel shank. Once you've got that one somewhat locked into place by the dust cover, be gentle. You can damage, easily the finish, maybe even more if you're not gentle, putting your outer jig on. You got a little spot there for your retainer here. Use that. If it's nice and snug, close it carefully. If you crash, just jiggle it a bit and we're good. I'm ready to tighten it up into the vise. I have some rubber here. It's probably a good idea to have some kind of protectant, even though you're using a jig. On the jig itself, it's marked, but you don't want to clamp above this line. I would go ahead and respect any instructions printed on the clamp. You don't have to go too crazy tightening this thing either, just hand tight, finger tight. When you go ahead and get your barrel, it has a notch there. That's going to go in a hole that's on your receiver. So that's how you know how to center it. There's no trouble there. It fits nice and snug. Put your barrel on. There we go. Once you've placed the barrel into the upper in your vise, you can proceed to get your barrel nut ready. We're doing a free-floated barrel, so our barrel nut is going to look like this. We're going to get it ready with some anti-seize. So I suggest you use some nitrile gloves to spread your anti-seize. A little bit goes a long way, guys. We don't need to go crazy with the anti-seize. It's going to end up all over everything if you're not careful. So we're going to use a little bit of anti-seize on our barrel nut. In order to work with your anti-seize, you're going to want to use some nitrile gloves that we just put on, and you're going to want to have a napkin nearby. And you don't want to use too much of this stuff because it gets everywhere. So you want to mix it, because anti-seize tends to loosen up on you. You want to mix it, make sure it's nice and mixed. Go ahead and put a tiny bit of anti-seize on the barrel. I'm going to put it actually on the receiver, and I'm going to work the threads back and forth with the barrel nut so that they get a good amount of anti-seize. Tiny bit, guys. Tiny bit goes a long way. If you need to put more, you can put more. Put the tiniest amount on there. Right now I'm just working the anti-seize into the threads. This is a delicate operation. You don't have to go crazy. There's no strength involved or any of that. Just, work it back and forth so that the threads get a good coating. You don't have to put it tight or anything like that. We're just working the anti-seize in for right this second. Later on, we're going to worry about see that there? I just applied a tiny bit of anti-seize to the receiver, tiny bit on any spot, and then you work it into the threads with your barrel nut. Nice and easy. No strength involved, none of that. You don't need to put a world of this stuff on there. That's plenty. In order to work the anti-seize onto the threads well, you need to push in and pull out slightly so that it gets on both sides of the threads. Alright guys, in order to torque on your barrel, you're going to need to set your torque wrench. I'm not going to do a video of that because you guys need to know how to set your torque wrench. And you know, there's a million of them out there. I don't know what torque wrench you've got. So you got to set your torque wrench to either 28 or 30 foot-pounds. If you can't set it to 28, set it to 30. You'll be fine. Put in your 1/2-inch drive torque wrench into your armorer's tool, and more likely than not, 99% of the time, you're going to be using these to do the torquing. So you got your barrel in your jig, and you've got your barrel nut finger tight. Now we're going to torque it to at least 28, probably 30 foot-pounds initially. And finally, if you have space for your gas tube. If not, you have to tighten it a bit more. It can be a bit tricky lining up your holes. Just be patient. There you go. So I reached 28 foot-pounds as I had the setting for it. Torque wrenches are known to be off by 4%, give or take. So, you know, I set it to 28. Let me see what I've got as far as clearance. Alright guys, we're well into our build. I just torqued on the barrel nut. I'm going to take a look through the receiver. I took it off the jig, took it out of everything. I'm going to take a look through the receiver to see where we're at with the lining up of the gas tube. So I'm going to see if the camera wants to cooperate, and I'll see if I can show you that we're off by the tiniest little bit. So I'm going to have to put it on the jig, put the jigs on, put it onto the vise, and tighten it ever so slightly. I'm going to see if we can see what I'm talking about. Trying to show you the slight blockage that there is at the delta ring. On the right is where it's ever so slightly blocked. I'm going to set my torque wrench to 40 foot-pounds. I'm going to give it a tiny bit more. And then that way I'll be able to slip in the gas tube. Hello YouTube! I want to apologize to you guys for losing the rest of the footage. What I did was I repeated the exercise that I just shot, where I torqued down the barrel nut. Basically, I did the same thing one more time, set to 35 foot-pounds. And I took it to 35 foot-pounds and made it to the next hole. I just went ahead and put in my gas tube and torqued down my gas block. So that went perfectly fine, and I apologize for turning my back to the camera. It's that my vise is kind of flimsy. It's all I had to work with, so I had to actually hold my work together as I torqued it. But everything worked out just fine, and I got myself a great rifle. So if you liked it, please like and subscribe. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I appreciate your company.